They found his teeth before they found his name. A rusted chain-link fence wrapped around a ditch behind an old Bronx warehouse, where rats gnawed at a body dumped like trash. No wallet. No ID. Just a smashed jawbone and gold caps glittering under dried blood. The cops marked it a mob hit. 2 in the back of the head, execution style. Cold. Blah. Precise. Forgotten. But this wasn't just another unsolved. This was the beginning of the end for a man named Dom Cicale. Years before the headlines, before the FBI wiretaps and federal betrayal, there was just this: a body, a silence, and the whispers that followed. Dom wasn't the one in the ditch, but he put him there. And it was the first time he couldn't sleep after a job. The street had rules. This broke all of them. And from that moment on, nothing, no money, no oath, no blood was sacred. That body was a warning. Not for the world. For Dom. Because the only thing more dangerous than a man who kills is the one who regrets it. 3 hours earlier, Dom stood under the flickering bulb of Mama Louisa's back kitchen, wiping blood off his hands with a white rag that would never be clean again. The job was supposed to be simple: scare the guy, maybe rough him up, deliver a message. But Dom knew from the second he stepped into that alley that something had changed. There was no fear in the man's eyes. No struggle. Just a look, resigned, almost grateful. Dom said nothing. The first shot went into the chest. The second, the head. Then he dragged the body to the ditch, feeling the silence scream louder than sirens. Mama Luisa didn't ask questions. She just handed him another towel and poured a glass of red wine, as if cleansing sin could be done over Chianti. But Dom's hands shook. For the first time in 5 years, they shook. And that meant something. That meant a piece of him didn't want to come back. Before the trigger, there was the voice. You don't have to do this. The mark, Vinnie Torelli, used to play stickball with Dom on 143rd. Grew up 2 blocks apart. But loyalty in the life? It was like ice on a hot sidewalk, pretty for a second, gone in a flash. Vinnie had flipped, or so the word went. Whether it was true didn't matter. Dom got the order. And orders were law. But the look Vinnie gave him before the first shot, it burned. Like he knew this would be the one that broke Dom. I forgive you, he whispered. And then he didn't say another word. That night Dom didn't just kill a snitch. He killed a part of his past, his street, his youth. And something inside him cracked. A crack nobody could see. Not yet. Dom sat alone in his apartment later that night, TV playing static, untouched pizza box on the table, the .38 still warm on the couch beside him. Rain slapped the windows like an angry ghost. He stared at the ceiling, trying to hear anything that wasn't his own guilt. The photo on the fridge, a younger Dom with Vinnie and Joey, arms around each other at Coney Island, kept pulling his gaze. How do you kill someone who once called your mother Ma? He reached for the remote, changed the channel, hoping for noise. Any noise. But nothing drowned it out. Not the storm. Not the city. Not even the whiskey. In the early morning, Dom went to confession. Not because he believed. Because he had nowhere else to go. The church was empty, incense hanging like fog in the beams of pale light from stained glass. He sat in the booth and said nothing. The priest waited. Dom finally muttered, I did something I can't undo. The priest asked, Do you want forgiveness? Dom shook his head. I want to forget. But forgiveness, like forgetting, wasn't part of the life. As Dom stepped out into the light, the city didn't feel any different. But he did. Just a little heavier. Just a little colder. The first time Dom killed, it wasn't clean. It wasn't sharp. It was messy, loud, and smelled like copper and sweat. It was 1995, a rain-slick basement in Flatbush. The mark was a Dominican runner named Angel Cruz, tied to a radiator with duct tape over his mouth. Dom had been told to watch. Just watch. But Tony Shakes Garofalo tossed him the piece and said, You wanna eat with us, you pull the trigger yourself. The gun felt heavier than it should have. Angel's eyes screamed louder than his gag. Dom hesitated. Just a second. But in this life, a second gets you killed. Shakes cocked his head. No threats. No push. Just that look that said, do it or you're out. Dom pulled the trigger. Twice. The sound didn't echo. It just dropped like a body on wet cement. After the killing, Dom didn't speak for 2 days. He walked the Bronx in silence, lit cigarette after cigarette, listening to the hum of the city like it could absolve him. He didn't sleep. Didn't eat. He met Tony outside an old diner in Pelham, still bloody under the fingernails. Tony passed him a folded envelope. This is what a man earns when he chooses family over conscience, he said. Dom took it, nodded, but didn't open it. Inside was $5,000 in cash. More money than Dom had seen at once in his life. But it felt like hush money. Blood money. And in that moment Dom understood something important. This life doesn't ask for loyalty. It buys it. Dom's younger brother Joey was 17, the night Dom came home wearing another man's blood. Joey sat at the kitchen table, headphones around his neck, staring at Dom like he was a stranger. You do what you had to? He asked. Dom didn't answer. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat down, and stared at the cracked linoleum. Joey said, I get it, you know. Sometimes you gotta go all the way. Dom finally looked at him. There was no judgment in Joey's voice. Just curiosity. That scared Dom more than anything. Don't look up to me, he said. Joey smirked. Too late. Dom saw it then. The seed planted. One day, that seed would bloom into something he couldn't control. By the end of that summer, Dom wasn't a runner anymore. He had weight. He had pull. The crew called him Bones, not because he was skinny, but because he made people disappear without a trace. He ran pickups from Astoria to Staten Island, collected debts, cracked ribs, and never once smiled while doing it. People respected him, feared him. But inside, he was hollow. Just going through motions. The only thing that kept him tethered was Joey. He used his new clout to keep Joey out of the life, enrolling him in community college, paying the bills before the lights got shut off. But the more Dom pushed Joey away from the streets, the more Joey watched him like a kid watching his older brother fly. Then came the job that changed everything. A big one. A sit-down with 2 rival crews over territory in Corona. Dom was asked to be the enforcer. No weapons. Just presence. But something about the setup felt off. Too many smiles. Too many people watching from windows. He told Tony, this ain't right. Tony just said, make it right. Dom walked into the deli like a soldier. And for a moment, it all paused. Like the air itself was waiting. That's when a shot rang out, not at Dom but at the other boss. Screaming. Blood. Dot. Panic. Dot. And Dom caught the shooter's eyes before he vanished into the alley. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone Dom knew. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. The hit was staged. The war had started. And Dom was in the middle of it. The morning after the deli hit, Dom woke up to silence. No calls. No messages. No explanations. Just the weight of betrayal thick in the air like gunpowder. He knew what it meant. Someone inside had set it up. Not a rival, not a street kid. One of his own. He walked the block like a ghost, watching familiar faces suddenly turn unfamiliar. Eyes averted. Conversation stopped when he passed. Loyalty in the mob was always conditional. But this was something else. Someone wanted him out, quietly, or violently. And worse, he didn't know who. That morning, Dom stood on his rooftop, staring at the city as smoke rose in the distance. Something was burning. Maybe a body. Maybe the whole damn crew. Tony Shakes called a meeting at a butcher shop in Queens. Private. No phones. Just whispers and knives. Dom sat across from him, meat hooks swaying overhead, the smell of blood never far. You think I set you up? Tony asked, carving a roast with unnecessary force. No, Dom said, but didn't mean it. Tony gave a crooked grin. Then act like it. Dom watched the blade glint under fluorescent lights. The silence between them was louder than threats. Dom left with a new job, clean up a crew in Red Hook who got sloppy with numbers. But he knew it was busy work. Smoke and mirrors. A distraction. Someone was moving pieces behind his back, and Tony was either complicit or covering his own ass. The crew in Red Hook was already gone when Dom got there. Not dead, disappeared. Their safe house was ransacked, papers burned in the sink, mattresses slashed. One wall had a word spray-painted in red. Ghost. Dom stood in the ruin, heart pounding. Someone was cleaning house. But not like the old days, this was surgical. No prints. No noise. No heat. He stepped outside and saw her again for the first time in months. Marina, leaning against his car like she never left. Heard you were bleeding, she said. I came to check the wound. Dom didn't smile. Couldn't. I think I'm already dead. She touched his chest. Not yet. But her eyes said something else. They said, run. They drove through Brooklyn in silence. Marina's hands on the wheel, Dom watching the streets blur. She had left this life behind, or tried to. Now she was back, drawn into the gravity of Dom's unraveling world. Why come back? He finally asked. Marina didn't answer right away. Because you saved me once. I figured I owed you a goodbye. They stopped at a riverside pier, rusted chain-link fencing rattling in the wind. Dom leaned on the hood, watching water ripple under oil-slicked light. They're coming for me, he said. Marina nodded. Then don't be here when they do. But Dom wasn't built for running. He had one more thing to find, the rat. That night, Dom broke into one of the old crew hangouts in Woodside, a half-abandoned pool hall where the jukebox still played Sinatra like nothing ever changed. He found what he was looking for behind a loose panel under the bar. An old burner phone, wiped clean except one saved voicemail. Dom played it. A voice he knew. Calm. Steady. Calculated. He doesn't see it coming. He thinks it shakes. We move next Thursday. You handle Joey. Dom's breath stopped. He replayed it. You handle Joey. That wasn't betrayal. That was blood. That was family. His stomach turned cold. There was only one person who would say that name like it mattered. One person close enough to reach his brother. Dom sat in the back of a dark church, the voicemail still echoing in his ears. Joey. They were talking about Joey. The kid he raised. Protected. Bled for. Dom gripped the pew like it could stop him from falling into the hole, forming in his chest. Who would go after Joey? And why? Unless Joey wasn't the target. Unless Joey was the voice. He replayed it again, this time not just hearing the words, but the way they were said. Calm. Cold. Familiar. And suddenly, Dom's world shifted. He remembered Joey asking too many questions. Being in places he shouldn't. The night he smirked after the first kill. The late-night calls he wouldn't explain. Cold rush flooded Dom's spine. No. It couldn't be. But it was. The Judas wasn't out there. He was blood. Dom confronted Joey in their childhood apartment. The one their mother died in. The one with the peeling wallpaper and broken clock above the stove. Joey sat at the kitchen table, calm, sipping coffee. No panic. No fear. Dom stood in the doorway, shaking. Tell me it ain't true, he said. Joey didn't even blink. I tried to protect you. You just wouldn't stop. Dom stared at him, breathing through clenched teeth. You're working with the feds? Joey looked down. I was never gonna be you. I just wanted out. But to get out, I had to give them someone. Silence swallowed the room. Dom whispered, "You gave them me." Joey met his gaze. "I gave them what you became." Dom didn't kill him. He couldn't. Not then. Instead he walked out, fists clenched, jaw locked, soul fractured. He went to Tony. Demanded answers. Tony didn't look surprised. "I figured you'd find out," he said. "Kid came to me first. Thought I could protect him." Dom's voice cracked. "You knew, and you didn't say anything." Tony shrugged. "He's your brother. I figured it was your mess to clean." Dom felt the betrayal rip through him like shrapnel. Everything. The hits, the setups, the silence. It was all part of the rot. "You set me up to die," Dom said. Tony leaned in. "I set you up to live. They were going to burn everything. You were the distraction." Dom nodded once. Then he pulled his piece. One shot. Right through Tony's chest. No warning. No speech. Just a final silence. Dom stood there as Tony collapsed over his desk, blood soaking into papers and bribes. For a second, Dom expected the world to stop. But the city kept moving. Sirens howled somewhere far away. Dom took Tony's gold ring from his finger and pocketed it. The crew would know what that meant. Dom wasn't asking questions anymore. He wasn't taking orders. He was cleaning house. One name at a time. As he left the office, he didn't run. He walked. Slow. But deliberate. The air smelled different. Not clean. Not free. Just scorched. Like something sacred had burned to ash. By nightfall, every street knew. Tony Shakes was dead. The boss's blood hadn't even dried, and already the crew was splitting. Some ran, won. Some chose sides. Some just vanished. Dom sat in the back of a downtown bar, silent, watching the empire he helped build crumble like rotted brick. Marina slid into the booth beside him, glass of whiskey in hand. "It's done," she said. Dom shook his head. "It's never done." She looked at him, really looked. "What are you gonna do?" Dom turned toward her, eyes hollow. "Whatever it takes." And in that moment, he wasn't a man anymore. He was momentum. He was vengeance in skin. And the city had no idea what was coming next. Dom knew the war wouldn't be fought in the streets. It would be fought in silence, in rooms with no windows, in cars parked with the engine still running. He started with the lieutenants. The ones who smiled too quickly. One by one they disappeared. Frankie, 2 times. Nico, Rizzo. Nietzsche. Pauli, Keys. Each was found dead in places that echoed their guilt. Trunk of a Cadillac, freezer in a butcher's, bottom of the Hudson. Dom didn't leave notes. Just tokens. Tony's ring. A photo of Joey. A single bullet, unsent. He was sending a message without words. Loyalty has a cost. And it's due now. And while the city pretended not to notice, every rat started running for cover. Marina begged him to stop. "You're killing ghosts," she said. "They were dead the moment they sold you out." Dom lit a cigarette and stared into the night. Then, "I'm just helping them finish the job." She tried to reach him, but he was too far gone. There was no Dom left, just the man he became when everything broke. She gave him one last out. A fake passport. A boat ticket. "I'm always out." "You want freedom? It's waiting," she said. He looked at the passport. New name, new face, clean slate. But he closed it. "Freedom's just another kind of prison," he muttered. Marina stepped back, tears in her eyes. "Then die like this if you have to. Just don't make me watch." And she left. For good. Dom walked into St. Anthony's Church in Harlem, wearing the same black suit he'd buried his father in. The pews were empty. Candles flickered like dying memories. He stepped into the confessional, closed the door, and waited. Footsteps echoed. The screen slid open. Across the mesh, sat Father Lorenzo, Tony's old friend, and Dom's secret informant. Dom said, "I need the last name." Lorenzo shook his head. "You don't want it." Dom leaned in. "He gave up my blood. I want his." A silence thickened. Finally, the priest whispered, "It wasn't about you. It was always about your father. You just inherited the war." Dom's hands trembled. "Name." Lorenzo sighed. "Giovanni Russo. He's in Miami now, protected, untouchable." Dom whispered, "So was God once." Dom landed in Miami under a name that didn't belong to him. Heat clung to the air like guilt. He tracked Giovanni Russo to a luxury condo near Biscayne Bay, retired, gray hair, yoga pants, jogging every morning like the blood never stained his shoes. Dom watched him for days. No guards. No designers. No caution. Just arrogance. On the fifth morning, Dom walked beside him on the running path. Russo didn't recognize him until it was too late. Dom said, "Tell me why." Russo froze. "Your old man was gonna flip. We buried him to protect the family. You were never supposed to know." Dom raised the gun under his hoodie. "I know now. One shot. Clean. No panic. Just justice." And then Dom disappeared into the sunrise like he never existed. Dom left the gun floating in the bay and boarded a train north that same night. No suitcase. No goodbye. Just silence. The war was over, at least on paper. But inside, it raged louder than ever. Every name he crossed off, every life he ended, it didn't bring peace. It brought ghosts. In a small motel outside Baltimore, he wrote a letter to Marina. "You were right, I died already, I'm just catching up." He folded the note, left it on the nightstand, and walked into the cold night with nothing but shadows behind him. He didn't know where he was going. Didn't care. All he knew was this: the Judas War ended in blood, but not in victory. The world thought Dom Cicale was dead. The press didn't print it. The cops never confirmed it. But in the life, silence is death. No more sightings. No more hits. No whispers. No body. Just an absence that spread like wildfire. The last trace was a blurry security cam photo, Dom at a Greyhound station in D.C., boarding a bus heading west. No luggage. No weapon. Just a man with dead eyes and a ticket to nowhere. In the photo, he wasn't running. He wasn't scared. He looked like someone who had already left long before the bus doors ever opened. The underworld declared him gone. A ghost. And for a man who once made blood run in gutters, that was the cleanest death he could hoped for. Weeks passed. Then months. Rumors rose like steam. A drifter in Detroit who looked like him. A man fixing boats in Louisiana. A bartender in Baja who never spoke. But none of them could be confirmed. Marina got a postcard. No return address. No message. Just a photo of a pine forest and a blood-red thumbprint. She kept it under her pillow. Sometimes when the silence got too loud, she'd press her thumb against the card like it meant something. Like it could bring him back. But the truth was, Dom wasn't coming back. Not to her. Not to anyone. He was buried in the spaces between places. No longer a man. Just consequence. Joey's body was found in a motel 2 hours outside Philly. No signs of struggle. Just a bottle of whiskey, a revolver on the floor, and a note. "I thought I could carry it. I can't." Dom never came to the funeral. But someone paid for everything: the casket, the flowers, the priest. The grave was marked only with his name, and 2 words: "My fault." No one claimed responsibility. No mobsters showed up. Just Marina, standing in the rain, staring at the headstone like it owed her an answer. Behind her, a black car waited with its lights on. Inside, a man lit a cigarette. Watched. Then drove off without saying a word. In a dusty town near the border, a stranger built furniture out of scrap wood and slept behind the shop. Locals called him El Silencio. He spoke only when necessary, fixed broken things with impossible precision, and vanished when the sun went down. Nobody asked questions. They saw the tattoos, the scars, the sadness behind the eyes. He drank black coffee, read old books, carried a small photo in his wallet, 2 kids at Coney Island, laughing. He looked at it every night before bed. Then one day, he packed up and left. Left the shop, the photo, everything. Just walked into the horizon like he was part of the land. No one ever saw him again. Back in New York, the name Dom Cicale had become legend. Cops still spoke of the man who vanished after burning half a syndicate to the ground. I.e. The old mob knew better than to say his name out loud. A detective teaching criminology at Fordham kept a jar on his desk. Inside it, a set of gold teeth, charred. "You want to survive this life?" he told his class. "Be smarter than your ghosts." Marina moved west, opened a bar no one could find unless they needed to. Some nights, a man in a dark coat sat in the corner and said nothing. She never asked his name. Just poured the whiskey. No words. Just a nod. And sometimes, just sometimes, she smiled. In a college lecture hall uptown, Detective Emeritus Sal Vecchio clicked through a projector slideshow. "This," he said, pointing to a grainy black and white photo, "is Dom Cicale, never arrested, never charged, suspected in over 20 homicides, and then he vanished." The students watched, fascinated. Sal tapped the jar on his desk, a small glass container holding gold teeth charred and cracked. That's all they ever found from his last known hit. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no justice. A hand raised. "You think he's dead?" Sal smirked. "In this life, that don't matter. He lives in whispers now, in the silence that follows fear." The projector clicked again. A photo of Dom as a teenager, smiling with Joey. Sal went quiet. Some ghosts don't haunt places, they haunt people. In the Bronx, a new crew ran things now, kids with tattoos, smartphones, and no sense of history. They threw parties, waved guns, streamed fights. But in the back room of an old butcher shop, the new boss kept a photograph tacked to the wall. A reminder. Dom's mugshot. Faded, pinned under a blade. "You see him," he told his soldiers. "You walk the other way." Because even if Dom was dead, the idea of him wasn't. The myth carried more weight than bullets. A ghost in the machine. A name that made rats shut their mouths. In the streets, respect didn't come from who you were. It came from who you feared. And they all feared Dom Cicale, even now. In a town where no one asked names, a postcard arrived with no return address. Marina opened the envelope slowly. It held only one thing, a photograph. Dom on a pier, distant, alone, facing the water. A cigarette dangled from his lips, wind tugging at his coat. Marina touched the photo and smiled. Just once. Then she lit a match. The flame caught quickly, curling the edges. She dropped it into an ashtray and watched it burn to black. Some things weren't meant to be found. Some people weren't meant to come home. The wind outside howled like it agreed. She poured herself a drink. Raised it. To the ones who disappear. The glass clicked. And the silence returned. Somewhere deep in South America, a man walked through a village market. Older now. Bearded. Weathered. Locals called him El Viejo del Norte. He bartered for fruit. Helped fix fences. Never spoke of his past. But one day, a stranger arrived. A man in a cheap suit, eyes too sharp. He sat across from the old man at a cafe. Said nothing for a long time. Then finally whispered, "They know you're not dead." The old man didn't look up. Just took a sip of black coffee. "Let them keep wondering," he said. The stranger nodded and left. And the man, Dom Cicale, finished his drink, paid in cash, and walked on. A ripple in a quiet place, a shadow that never left the light too long. Years later, in a retirement home in Nevada, an old man whispered something in his sleep. The nurse leaned in. "Cicale," he said. Then, silence. She wrote it down, out of habit. No one knew who he was. No ID. No records. Just a weathered body and a haunted name. When he passed, there was no service. No family. But someone came that night. A woman. She left a rose on the windowsill. A photo tucked underneath. 2 boys at Coney Island. No name on the back. Just one line. "There's no retirement plan for ghosts." The wind rattled the window. The rose stood still. And the name Dom Cicale vanished, one final time, into the silence that made him legend.